My name is Chuck Hoppenrath. I'm the partner with Axient Digital's Modern Applications and Cloud Practice. And I can't thank y'all enough for joining this conversation today to talk about some of the things that we heard last week at the SAP Sapphire Conference and how Mendix can play a really critical role in helping enable their initiatives and the things that they had spoken about, and also play a really important role in helping to modernize a broader application portfolio. I can't be more grateful to have Martin de Vries with Mendix join us. Martin, if you could introduce yourself, sir, I really appreciate it.
Sure, thanks, Chuck. Martin de Vries here from Mendix. I am the SAP Program Manager here on our Technology Alliances team. And we've been the solution extension partner of SAP for the low-code space since 2017, so it goes back a while now. 2017, that really is an extensive length of co-engineered solutions that I certainly have heard reflected across the board. Let me take a second and talk a little bit about Axient Digital, because the question a lot of folks probably have is, who is Axient? Axient is a broad portfolio of technology companies that have been around for about 25 years. We have 3,600 global employees servicing our shared clients from over 20 offices on 4 different continents. The resources that Axient Digital brings to bear broach across the modern technology landscape, whether it's in cloud, and for us, cloud really is very tightly defined as hybrid cloud, because workloads will be able to run both on-premises and in public cloud today, as everybody is well aware, but also traditional data center and user compute, moving into enterprise service management capabilities, modern application development capabilities, which Mendix fits very nicely and is one of the crown jewels in our portfolio for, as well as AI and ML and data and analytics capabilities, as well as support from some of the best project managers and program managers and business analysts I've ever had the pleasure of being able to work with. The numbers that you see reflected here above the map really reflect the number of resources that we have to be able to support our shared clients across the globe here. And it is a genuine pleasure to be able to front and have this conversation with Mendix today. Martin, I stole one of your slides from a few of your decks that talk specifically about how Mendix and SAP work inside of together. I'd love for you to give a little bit of an overview of your 6-year history with Mendix and how Mendix fits inside the SAP realm itself. Sure, happy to do that. So where to start? So yeah, we've been at the SAP game for a long time. We firmly believe that SAP and Mendix and low code is a really good combination, right? For the simple reason that SAP's core business is standard software, right? But obviously, and that will take you an awfully long way. But there comes a point where you have custom, unique requirements, unique to your industry, perhaps unique to your business, how you want to differentiate yourself in the market. And that's kind of where obviously you can customize SAP, and they have a whole bunch of development tools in BTP. But it can get pretty complicated, right? And this is where we play. We have many customers that use SAP. Some of those customers, I would say, did not start Mendix specifically with the intention or as a strategy for working with SAP, but SAP is one of their backend systems, so they have a number of applications that integrate with SAP. Others specifically choose Mendix as an SAP way going forward, and above all, keeping the core clean. As I'm sure you've probably heard that term, the idea that you shouldn't be building custom code directly in your ERP system anymore, right? Because that just locks you into old versions, makes upgrades very complicated, leads to a lot of technical debt and all the problems of that. So we have customs in that whole gamut from integrating with SAP as and when needed, to consciously deciding, like, this is how we are going to do customization with SAP going forward. And equally, they have different reasons for doing that. And you see some of those reasons here on the slide. I'll walk through them real quick. The first is simply that it's faster. It makes your SAP development faster. It makes your developers, of which you usually have a limited resource pool because skilled SAP developers are not so easy to come by. So it makes them a lot more productive. Typically, we see that customers say that things are 5 to 7 times faster than traditional SAP development. For Mendix in general, compared to high code, it's often up to 10 times, right? But we hear a lot of SAP customers talking about 5 to 7 times. Not just more productive, also more flexible, because with SAP, traditionally, you're a front end or a back end developer. You're either ABAP or you're Fiori UI5 or something like that. With Mendix, those back end developers can do front end, and front end developers can start to do back end, and so you develop a more full stack development team, and that makes them more flexible. And while SAP developers are typically very skeptical about anything non-SAP to start with, once they actually start working with Mendix and see how quickly they can develop, how quickly they can add value to the business, they actually sometimes get genuinely excited about it, right? And it gives even the most tenured SAP developers kind of a new lease on life. It's like, oh my God, this is a totally different way of doing things. So anyway, I will go a bit faster through the other points, but the impact that it has on a traditional SAP development shop is really quite profound. Obviously, that also applies to external developers if you work a lot with contractors or SAP partners, and that's absolutely fine. But we hear some customers saying we're over-reliant on externals. We've outsourced the whole thing, and now we have no control anymore ourselves, and we want to rebuild our own capability to customize things our way, right? And so, a low-code platform like Mendix can help you do that. I've already mentioned the fact that things are a lot faster with Mendix development. That doesn't just apply to simple things like front-end changes or anything like that. It's full stack, and it's very complex SAP extensions as well. There's this perception that low code is only sort of for simple Excel sheet type applications or something like that. That's simply not true anymore. Maybe it was once, but it's not anymore, and it's not in the SAP realm either. We see a particular category where customers are looking at S/4HANA migration, right? But the amount of customization they have in their ECC system or systems is a barrier to making that move. And we can help customers to start cleaning the core even before they have officially decided to go for S/4HANA, right? There's you're going to have to do it sooner or later. So, and there's no reason to not start doing that already while you're still firmly on ECC. And then basically those modernized applications that you build that talk to ECC can later also talk to S4 as and when you've made the migration. And that's how it eases S4 migrations. And last but not least, I think you touched on it, Chuck, as well. Even though SAP is often a huge part of the companies that they operate in, there isn't an SAP system out there that isn't integrated with some other systems, right? Companies do use other systems as well. And here we often see that SAP tools are used by the SAP camp, but then there's a Microsoft camp that wants to use Power Apps, and there's a Salesforce camp that wants to use Lightning, and a ServiceNow, you get the idea, right? Everyone is using their own proprietary tool, and that's great. But what if you really want to do end-to-end processes, spanning SAP, but also other systems? You need a kind of a neutral, best-in-class platform that is going to be, everyone is going to be able to live with, right? And that is the role that Mendix often plays as well, as sort of the demilitarized zone, if you will, right? Okay, if we need to do something spanning multiple systems, nobody gets to use their own, low-code platform or development tools, but we're all quite happy to do it in Mendix. So that took maybe a little bit longer than you'd envisaged, but I thought that gives a good sense of what SAP customers get out of using Mendix.
Not at all. And I will say what you were just describing really encapsulates why I was incredibly excited when Axient Digital was able to partner with Mendix to be able to bring these capabilities to our clients here in the United States. there's a couple things that from an enterprise architecture perspective, and that's really what I am at my core, an EA. Any tool that can help remediate technical debt, that breaks down silos, that really helps full business processes to be modeled and bring disparate groups together, whether inside software development or software development inside cloud, on-premises, all of those groups being able to come together and use a single platform that can address a business problem, that's my love language. So that gets me really, really excited when you start talking about that, right? And this slide to me speaks to a lot of what I heard SAP talk about last week at Sapphire, right? They spent a lot of time talking about getting to the cloud, right? Everybody wants to be able to move out towards a public cloud. One of the things that nobody wants to think about, though, are what are those house cleaning things that we need to do before we start moving out to the cloud? Because otherwise, all we're going to do is move all of our challenges and our bad processes that we grew up with on premises, and we're going to bring them together with an expensive check that's going to be due every month, month after month after month. I loved that you had talked about how Mendix can operate inside of a realm where it helps journey to the clean core and keeping the core clean. I think that's absolutely critical. But I also understand, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about this, is how Mendix is taking the next step and helping move towards cloud enablement at a broader level, right? How do we partner together with some of the hyperscalers to be able to make cloud migration a little bit easier? You know, when we were first starting to talk about this webinar, you had mentioned some work that you're doing with AWS, Amazon Web Services as well, and how that's going to help accelerate. Can you talk a little bit about how that fits inside this journey to the cloud for Mendix and SAP client?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's about deployment freedom and choice, right, to align with the policy that, you know, if a company is adopting a cloud strategy, they're going to have a certain way they want to do it. And whatever tooling and platforms you choose has to be able to support that deployment option. And it may even change over time, right? So whatever you're doing now you never know what's around the corner, right? So
sure.
And this is where, in our case, the first thing to point out is that we are multi-cloud. You know, we're cloud native, and we have multi-cloud support. So we don't have we don't force the customer to go to any particular cloud option, any particular hyperscaler, or any particular type of cloud. We have a public cloud called Mendix Cloud, which runs on AWS. But if the customer wants to deploy in their own AWS or Azure or Google environment, or on-premise, or on edge devices in an industrial setting, all of that is possible because we're truly cloud native, and all the apps that you build with Mendix are containerized. So we offer that complete freedom of choice both now and in the future, and I think companies need that freedom, especially when they're starting out with their cloud journey, to be able to make those choices. You alluded to our partnership with AWS. Yes, our role with AWS is a bit special because our design time platform component. So what I was talking about just now is where you deploy the applications that you build with Mendix, but the actual platform components of Mendix, so the IDE and the environment in which you build the applications, that has run on AWS since 2016, right? And our public cloud, Mendix Cloud, runs on AWS as well. So our relationship with AWS goes back a long way. But we've recently, about a year ago, decided to intensify that relationship with AWS quite strategically. Not in small part because we are a Siemens business, and Siemens has a strategic collaboration agreement, right? And we play a key role within that. And the essence of this expanded partnership is that whereas in the past we were just talking about cloud deployment of where you deploy your apps, we now want to extend that to the entire developer experience. So we want to make it a completely low-code, drag and drop experience to integrate 200 plus AWS services, AI, machine learning, computer vision, document processing, you name it, digital twins. We want to make it a drag and drop experience, integrate that kind of sophisticated cloud native technology into your Mendix apps, right? And so we're working with AWS on that. We've built a whole suite of connectors that literally do make it a drag and drop experience. There's more to do, but that's how we're enabling not just cloud deployment, but just a completely, cloud-based way of developing and access to, state-of-the-art new technologies for people to use it's going to lower the barrier to innovation with all these new technologies even further than low code by itself. So that's something we're pretty excited about.
What intrigues me about what you've described here is the ability to easily get access to all of those resources in a referenceable way. I don't need to, as an architect, I don't need to come in and try to be able to build all of these capabilities up from the ground up. I can use your reference architectures to start designing how my workloads can fit inside of a multi-cloud strategy. I'm not tied in anywhere. I can start looking at what makes sense for my business, where my customers are, how am I interacting with them, and use your platform as a way to be able to interact with and integrate with SAP and other resources that are available across the board, across this hybrid cloud that everybody's trying to be able to build and get their hands around. And this also really highlights the two other main themes that SAP really spent a lot of time talking about last week inside Sapphire. SAP announced a number of strategic partnerships that they formed with Microsoft and Google to start bringing advanced analytics into the SAP platform, specifically inside SAP S/4HANA, but they're going to bring it to on-premises deployments as well. And that's awesome because everybody's moving in this direction. AI is changing the world. My wife is a public school teacher and this year started having to play with and understand how many of her students were using ChatGPT to write essays. And she'd come home and she's like, do you think computer wrote this? I'm like, well, when it says, written by an AI persona, I think that's probably yes. But it changes everything that we're interacting with and across the board. But I think there's a broader story here that Mendix helps. Well, we talked about how SAP is typically core to a lot of business processes. It's not the only business process that our clients have. And we shouldn't ignore bringing intelligence and AI and machine learning to other business processes that feed in, right? We should be looking at ways to be able to uplift and enable this across the board. Mendix, with their ability to be able to capture with these templates and these pre-formatted ways to be able to work together and integrate with these analytics platforms, can really enable efficiencies across the board for all of these subservient or lower level processes that feed into SAP, whether it exists or not. I think that really, really is key. And likewise, SAP spent a lot of time talking with customers that are struggling with ESG reporting. Environmental, social, governance reporting is really becoming important for us to be able to extend and report and communicate to our clients and to the businesses that we're doing work with on a regular basis, what stewards we're being with the environment, how we're dealing with our clients, how we're dealing with our customers and our employees. And that's really important. But ESG reporting is incredibly difficult because it's not like there's one database where HR uses and talks about how we're interacting with the clients and how we're dealing with environmental regulations and rules. This is much broader than what typically SAP would be able to touch. And this, I think, gets into what you had spoken about, where I need to be able to bring in data from multiple different data sources, disparate data sources that traditionally are not integrated together, and look at a way to be able to dashboard them and report them in real time to enable not only adherence with reporting requirements and where it gets into quarterly reports and year-end reports, but give the people who are interested in our business operations real-time access to how we're being stewards of this world and how we're dealing with our customers and our clients across the board. Both of those really are reflective of what we had talked about. And I'd like you to speak about how this is not Mendix playing in the margins. This truly is an enabler for those other two topics that SAP really, really focused on last week down in Orlando.
Yeah, I think two things. First of all, I mean, Mendix is not an analytics tool as such, right? We're not a BI platform or anything like that. So if you're looking for advanced analytics, then, we would advise you to look at the tools that are dedicated for that purpose. Although you can often embed those tools into Mendix apps. And why would you do that? I think there are two features perhaps of ESG reporting that lend themselves well to Mendix. The first is that it's rarely purely reporting, but that you want to do something. You want to act on those insights as well, right? And making insights actionable. And that's how Mendix as an application platform is often used in combination with analytics tools. We do have quite a lot of dashboarding and reporting capability ourselves, right? But there are limits to it because it's not our sole focus. But if your capabilities fit within Mendix, you can do the whole thing within Mendix. If you're doing advanced analytics, you would use the dedicated tooling for that, but still embed that into Mendix in order to make it actionable, right? And to embed that reporting into a business process. You want to do something with it. There are inputs that need to be collected for it, and there are outputs and actions that need to be taken from it. And that's really where we come in, right? The other thing I think about ESG reporting is that ESG and sustainability in general is a relatively new and still very evolving field where probably many companies don't actually know exactly what they need yet, right? This is not as cut and dried as, financial accounting, right? It's an evolving space. It varies by industry. And Mendix as a low-code platform lends itself very well to those areas where you're not quite sure what you need yet, and you want to start small and kind of grow and develop and evolve whatever solution you need for your business, right? So we see quite a lot of customers building ESG and sustainability related apps. They're very different because they're in very different industries and have very different needs, but each one can build what they need when they need it in their own time.
And being able to enable those people who are responsible for ESG reporting to customize the applications that they're using, the dashboards that they need to be able to do. Your concept of citizen developers, I think, is absolutely critical, right? Because I can only imagine the conversations between a person who's doing ESG reporting and a traditional reporting SME on the back end. That conversation would potentially be burdensome rather than enabling your ESG reporter, the person who's looking for that data, giving them the ability to go in and do that customization themselves. That's huge, and have them the ability to customize on the fly as these new formats and these new reporting structures change across the time. I loved how this whole emphasis last week down in Orlando spoke to not only how Mendix enables SAP environments, but here's a question. Mendix and SAP. So we spent a lot of time focusing about SAP inside Mendix, and I know it's a co-engineered solution. But there's a question from somebody who's on the webinar right now. It's broader than that, though, right? This is not just an SAP-only tool. It's not just meant to integrate only inside SAP. It has applicability outside of this, correct? And I'd love for you to be able to speak about that, Martin, because I think we hemmed and hawed around that on the edges, but I'd like to be able to specifically talk about it.
Absolutely. I'm not seeing a specific question from the audience member, so if there's a specific question there, I'm happy to take that as well. But
so is Mendix an SAP focused tool, or can it be used to solve broader challenges inside the application space?
Absolutely. So, it's both to a degree, but I'd choose the latter if I had to choose. What do I mean? You can tell a lot about a company just from where it comes from and its roots, right? So we were founded in 2005, specifically to solve the problem of business IT collaboration or lack thereof. So to your point just now, we are absolutely a tool that professional developers, think SAP developers, can use to become more productive and deliver more with less, right? But we can also be used with and by the business. And that's really when the magic often happens, is when business and IT collaborate together to build solutions, right? And collaboration doesn't have to mean pure citizen development, that the business does it by themselves. That's kind of the other extreme. What we are often interested in is the collaboration between IT and business working together in so-called fusion teams, as it's called these days. That's often the right, because you can build sophisticated applications because you've got the IT people on board, but you actually understand the problem you're trying to solve because you've got the business people involved. And if you have both of those, that's when things really work out. But back to the question, we were not founded with SAP in mind at all. And so we are absolutely agnostic and open to everybody. But as I said, we have had this unique position as SAP's solution extension partner. That is their highest level of partnership all the way back to 2017, right? And what that partnership entails is that all those years, SAP has actually resold Mendix as their low-code solution on their price list. So we have a large number of customers that have actually bought Mendix through SAP, right? And that just shows how close our relationship with SAP is. That has resulted in tight integration between ourselves and SAP. And one, I would say, unique capability, which I failed to mention earlier in our conversation, is that you can deploy Mendix apps directly to SAP's BTP cloud as well, which is unique among any non-SAP. So obviously SAP solutions can do that. Mendix solutions can do that as well, but then Mendix can deploy to all those other clouds as well, whereas SAP really just wants you to deploy to SAP. So I think that's the classic example of where we can cater to those hardcore SAP needs where you want to deploy on SAP, but you can absolutely also deploy anywhere else if you like as well. And so it is with we got good integration with SAP, but we got good integration with anyone else as well.
You're describing a Swiss Army knife type of an approach that really gives you a lot of customized capabilities depending on what you're needing, and that's a wonderful tool to have inside your belt. So that's great.
It's very cliche, but we are genuinely aiming for the best of both worlds for SAP customers, right? Yeah.
So we are coming towards the bottom of the hour, and I wanted to be able to keep this tight and give us a chance to be able to go. I did want to offer a couple of resources to be able to follow back up on. I have spent inordinate amount of time looking at Mendix.com and the resources that it makes available and the conversation starters that it has there for you to learn what Mendix can offer for you as well. I'd also love to offer Axiom Digital as a way to be able to help extend and discuss how Mendix might be able to help your particular challenges that you're facing inside your application portfolio, whether it's SAP centric, whether it's SAP integrated, or whether it's something that's even broader. There's a lot of very unique things that my team at Axiom Digital has been able to do with Mendix to solve problems, whether it's business-to-business portal development or integrations inside HR systems. There's lots of things that my team has experience with that can help discuss how it might be able to move. My email address is on this. I'd love to be able to further this conversation with anybody who'd love to be able to have this conversation. Martin, I can't thank you enough for your time, your energy, and your experience here. I think it really made this conversation a very wonderful thing, and I really appreciate your time this afternoon. So thank you very much.
Enjoyed doing it.
Thank you.